Will, by Will Smith. Ever caught yourself wondering what it really takes to become the biggest movie star on the planet? Not just the surface stuff like talent or luck, but that bone-deep, almost scary determination that transforms someone from pretty good into a household name across every continent? There's this moment early in Will Smith's story that basically tells you everything. Picture a young guy, barely 20, standing on the set of his first major TV show. He's absolutely terrified of screwing up, desperate to prove he deserves to be there. So what does he do? He doesn't just memorize his own lines, he memorizes the entire script. Every single word for every single actor. He's so consumed by it that when other actors deliver their lines, you can catch his lips silently moving along with theirs, like he's their understudy in some invisible performance. That obsessive young man was Will Smith, and that quirky little detail isn't just a charming backstory. It's actually a keyhole view into the mind of one of the most successful entertainers we've ever seen. It shows you this relentless, almost consuming work ethic that came from somewhere totally unexpected. The book we're diving into today tells his story. It's called Will, and trust me, this isn't your typical celebrity memoir. It's part confession, part instruction manual, and part philosophical exploration of that gap between who we actually are and who we pretend to be for the world. This book has sold millions of copies, not because it's packed with scandalous gossip, but because it reveals something universal. We're all fighting our own fears, whether we're movie stars or not. Over the next while, I'm going to walk you through Will Smith's remarkable journey from the streets of West Philadelphia all the way to the absolute top of Hollywood. But even more importantly, I want to share the profound lesson he learned when everything fell apart and he lost almost everything he'd built. It's about understanding the difference between winning and actually being happy, between chasing what you want and finding what matters, between the protective shell we build around ourselves and the person we were always meant to become. This isn't just about becoming famous, it's about becoming real. Everything you think you know about Will Smith, the action hero who saves the world, the magnetic star who lights up every room, that larger-than-life personality, it all started in a single, devastating moment in a bedroom when he was just 9 years old. It started with fear. Will calls himself a coward. He remembers watching his father, a man he both admired and feared, a man everyone called Daddy-O, punch his mother in the side of the head so hard that she collapsed and spit blood. And in that moment, frozen in the doorway, Will did absolutely nothing. He was her oldest son, the only person who could have helped, and he just stood there. That single moment of paralysis shaped everything that followed. He writes that Will Smith, the global superstar, is mostly a construction, a carefully designed character meant to protect himself, to hide that terrified little boy, to cover up what he saw as his cowardice. That failure became an endless, silent apology to his mother that would drive everything he did for the rest of his life. His father, Willard Carroll Smith Sr., was complicated and powerful in equal measure. Daddy-O was simultaneously a hero and a source of deep pain. He'd served in the Air Force and became a brilliant engineer who built his own refrigeration business from scratch. He ran his family like it was boot camp. Everything was a mission. Cleaning your room wasn't a chore. It was an order to police your area. 99%, he'd tell his kids, is exactly the same as 0. Everything mattered completely, and Daddy-O believed he was preparing his children for a harsh world by drilling unshakable discipline into them. This discipline became Will's secret weapon, even though it was forged in constant tension. One of the most powerful lessons happened when Will was 11. His father decided to build a new brick wall for his shop, and instead of hiring professionals, he assigned the job to Will and his younger brother Harry. For nearly a year, every single day after school, through weekends and holidays, they mixed mortar and laid bricks. The task felt absolutely impossible. Will was convinced he'd grow old and die still working on that wall. One day his father overheard him complaining. Daddy-O marched over, grabbed a brick, and held it up in front of Will's face. "Stop thinking about the damn wall," he said. "There is no wall. There are only bricks. Your job is to lay this brick perfectly, then move on to the next brick." This became the foundation of Will's entire career. It's an unglamorous secret, he admits, but it's the truth. You show up and you lay another brick. Bad opening weekend. Lay another brick. Marriage falling apart? Lay another brick. Through failure, loss, embarrassment, and grief, every single day, he got up, mixed the concrete, and laid another brick. His father gave him his name, but more than that, he gave him his willpower. But while Daddy-O built him up with discipline, he tore him down with violence. The constant fear in his childhood home forced Will to develop incredibly sharp intuition. He learned to read every tiny shift in his father's mood, every flicker in his eyes, every subtle change in his voice. Recognizing these emotional shifts was literally a survival skill. And he found his defense. He decided to be funny. If he could keep Daddy-O laughing, if he could entertain him, then his family would be safe. This was how the pleaser, the entertainer, was born. He processed his father's violent episodes as his own personal failure. He believed he should have been able to keep his father happy, to protect his mother, to make everything okay. It's this desperate need to please, to keep everyone laughing and comfortable, that creates a true entertainer. This need to perform blended perfectly with his wild imagination. As a child, Will lived in fantasy worlds. The line between reality and make-believe was basically non-existent for him. He'd tell such elaborate stories that people thought he was a liar, but he explains that he didn't lie about what he saw. His perception itself lied to him. His mind would automatically create whatever story he felt people needed to hear to feel okay. This imagination was both a gift and a curse. He went through a passionate cowboy boot phase, wearing them with shorts, which in West Philadelphia was basically asking for trouble. He once asked for a Raleigh chopper for Christmas, one of those low-rider bikes with the giant banana seat, while all his friends got matching Huffy mountain bikes. He genuinely thought he was the coolest kid on the block, the leader of the crew. They just laughed at him. But this delusional confidence would eventually become his superpower. When you don't realize you can't do something, you just go ahead and do it. When producers asked if he could act, he said, of course, even though he'd never acted before. When studios claimed a black lead couldn't sell movies internationally, he genuinely couldn't understand how someone so obviously wrong could have that job. His rules were just different. Living in your own world has consequences, though. He was skinny, unathletic, and seen as an easy target. One day, playing basketball in his cowboy boots, he announced he was about to dunk like Dr. J. He truly believed it. He took off running, launched himself into the air, and promptly hit the rim, flipped backward, and knocked himself unconscious on the pavement. The bigger the fantasy, he learned, the more brutal the collision with reality. While his father represented discipline, his grandmother Gigi was pure love. She was, as he calls her, Jesus' homegirl. She worked the graveyard shift as a nurse to support the family and became the moral center of his life. Her approval felt like God's approval. She encouraged him to perform, organizing church recitals and talent shows. At 11, He played the song Feelings on the piano for her at a church Easter show. He says the look on her face in that moment, pure, unconditional adoration, is something he's been chasing in the eyes of every woman he's loved since. In that performance, he discovered something powerful. He could hide behind a mask and still be loved, gaining everything while risking nothing. The concepts of love and performance fused together in his mind. Great performances earned you love. Bad performances left you abandoned and alone. This was his world, constantly navigating between two cultures, the black world of his neighborhood and the white world of his Catholic school. At school, he was the black kid. In the neighborhood, because of his proper speech and middle-class upbringing, he was never quite black enough. Humor became both his weapon and his shield. Funny is colorblind. If he was making the white kids laugh, he wasn't just a racial category. If he was making the neighborhood kids laugh, he wasn't getting beaten up. If he was making Daddy-O laugh, his family was safe. Laughter literally equaled survival. But his high school career opened with a brutal lesson about the power of words. On his first day at the predominantly black Overbrook High, terrified and trying to feel safe, he used humor. He stood up in the crowded cafeteria and announced, "He's here. Y'all can relax." A kid nearby muttered that nobody cared. Will shot back with a slick comeback. "Give me 10 minutes, your girl's gonna care." An hour later, that same kid snuck up behind him on the stairs and cracked him in the head with a combination lock, knocking him unconscious. Lying in bed that night, his mouth bloody and his head throbbing, he realized something profound. His words had created his reality. He wasn't weak. He was incredibly powerful, but he had no control over that power. His grandmother had once found his rap book filled with curse words. She didn't yell at him. She just left a note inside. Truly intelligent people do not have to use language like this to express themselves. Please show the world that you are as intelligent as we think you are. That night, lying in bed, he decided to use his words to lift people up, to help rather than hurt. He never cursed in his rhymes again. This was when the Fresh Prince truly began to emerge. Hip-hop was exploding, and Will, with his clean rhymes and comedic storytelling style, quickly built a reputation. He was clever, but his real weapon was humor. He understood that you simply can't beat funny. You can be the toughest rapper alive, but if someone lands a punchline that makes 40 people laugh at you, you're finished. His constant practice, fueled by Daddy-O's work ethic, made him nearly unbeatable in rap battles. He found his voice, and with it, a new kind of power. This power led him to a young DJ who was making waves in Philly, a musical genius named Jeffrey Allen Towns, better known as Jazzy Jeff. Will was supposed to battle Jeff's MC at a house party, but the MC never showed up. Will offered to fill in, just until the other guy arrived. What happened next was pure magic. It was what athletes call the zone. Will writes that it felt like they already existed as a group, and just had to catch up to themselves. Jeff could sense every punchline coming, dropping the track at the perfect moment. Will could read Jeff's transitions, knowing exactly which scratch was coming next. That night, in a basement in West Philadelphia, DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince was born. Their rise was meteoric. They practiced constantly in Jeff's basement, which became a sanctuary, a creative workshop. Jeff's work ethic was the only one Will had ever encountered that matched his own. They were creating something new, blending musical sophistication with humor and storytelling. In 1986, their single Girls Ain't Nothing But Trouble started getting serious radio play. This created major tension at home. His mother, who he called Mom, was fiercely devoted to education. For her, college was everything. It was the foundation of a successful life, the only real protection against the world's cruelty. To her, rapper was a hobby, not a legitimate career. Will had secretly decided he wasn't going to college, and when he finally told her, it was heartbreaking for both of them. It was Daddy-O who broke the standoff. He had been an artist himself, a photographer whose dreams were cut short because they were considered impractical. He saw something of himself in Will. He made a deal. "You got 1 year," he said. "We're going to help you, but in 1 year, if it's not happening, you're going to college." A year felt like forever. A few weeks later, Will was bagging ice at his father's shop, listening to the radio, his mind swirling with doubt. What if his mom was right? What if this was all a huge mistake? And then he heard it. The DJ announced a new song from Philly's own DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. It was his voice, his rhymes, him. On the radio. It was the joy of validation, the joy of being right about himself. What followed was a whirlwind. Their debut album rocked the house, went gold. They toured with hip-hop legends like Run DMC, LL Cool J, and Public Enemy. Will was an adventurer, absorbing every new experience. Their next album, He's the DJ, I'm the Rapper, became hip-hop's first-ever double album. It was a creative masterpiece, anchored by the hit single, Parents Just Don't Understand. Then, something unimaginable happened. The Grammys announced they were adding a rap category for the first time, and Parents Just Don't Understand was nominated. They won, becoming the first rappers ever to receive a Grammy. Will was now a world-famous, Grammy-winning, freshly minted millionaire. He was 20 years old, and he felt like he'd conquered life. Spoiler alert, he hadn't. The higher you climb, the harder you can fall. Will's first love, a girl named Melanie, had been the center of his universe. He had built a home for them, vowing to protect her and heal her past wounds. But one day, coming home from tour, something felt wrong. His internal alarm system, fine-tuned by years of reading Daddy-O's moods, was screaming. He confronted her, and she admitted she had cheated on him. He describes the feeling as getting hit in the head with that lock all over again. A blue flash, then suddenly you're in an alternate universe where nothing makes sense. The emotional pain was so intense he says he would have genuinely preferred being stabbed. He desperately needed relief, so he turned to what he calls the homeopathic remedies of shopping and rampant sexual intercourse. He flew 10 friends to Atlanta and literally closed down a Gucci store. He had sex with so many women that he developed a psychosomatic reaction where having an orgasm would make him gag and sometimes vomit. He was doing the very thing he'd hated his father for, hurting women. His career was also crashing. Their third album, And in This Corner, flopped. The crowds at their shows were getting thinner. Industry calls stopped getting returned. To make everything worse, he hadn't paid his taxes. The IRS came for everything. The cars, the motorcycles, the house. He wasn't just broke, he was in debt. Rock bottom was a jail cell in Philadelphia. He'd been arrested for aggravated assault after a fight at a radio station involving his security guard, Charlie Mack. It was wrong place, wrong time, but there he was, lying on a cold stone floor. Everything he'd built was gone. He called a woman named Tanya Moore in Los Angeles and asked if he could crash with her for a while. He couldn't even afford the plane ticket. He had to borrow $10,000 from a local drug dealer he'd become friends with. 3 days after Will landed in L.A., that friend was shot and killed. Will hid in Tanya's apartment for weeks, lost, depressed, and terrified. But Tanya, after letting him mourn, gave him the push he needed. "You have to get out," she told him. "Go to the Arsenio Hall show. Just hang out, meet people." It was at Arsenio's show that he met a music executive named Benny Medina. Benny had a story to tell, his own. He was an orphan from East LA who, as a teenager, was taken in by a wealthy family in Beverly Hills. He had an idea for a TV show based on his life. He asked Will a simple question: "Do you know how to act?" As a general rule, Will writes, if someone asks him if he can do something, the answer is always yes. Weeks later, he got the call. Quincy Jones wanted to meet him at his birthday party tonight. Will flew to LA and found himself at this incredibly star-studded party at Quincy's Bel-Air mansion. In the middle of the living room, right in front of Steven Spielberg and the head of NBC, Brandon Tartikoff, Quincy Jones told him to clear the furniture. He was going to audition right now. Will froze. He needed a week, an acting coach, time to prepare. Quincy pulled him into the library. "Right now," Quincy said, his eyes suddenly sharp and serious. "Everybody that needs to say yes to this show is sitting out there in that living room. And you are about to make a decision that will affect the rest of your life." Quincy Jones, Will explains, understands magic. He sees the universe as an infinite playground of possibilities. His job is to move the obstacles out of the way so the blessings can flow in. He was moving furniture, but he was really trying to get Will to move his own obstacle, his fear, out of the way. Will took a breath. "Screw it," he said. "Give me 10 minutes." He performed 2 scenes, and the room erupted. Quincy, in this whirlwind of creative energy, orchestrated the entire deal right there on the spot. By the end of the night, NBC had agreed to shoot a pilot for a show tentatively titled The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. 6 weeks earlier, Will had been broke and hiding in an apartment. Now he had a new family, a new home, and a completely new life. The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was an immediate hit, but Will understood that television, like music, wouldn't last forever. He needed the next thing ready. That next thing was movies. His goal, he told his manager James Lassiter, or JL, was to become the biggest movie star in the world. They studied the patterns like scientists. The top 10 grossing films of all time all had special effects. 9 had special effects and creatures. 8 had special effects, creatures, and a love story. This became their formula. But getting a studio to bet hundreds of millions on a young black sitcom actor? That was a serious long shot. His personal life was also evolving. He was at a taping of the show A Different World, hoping to meet a young actress he'd had his eye on, Jada Pinkett. But between scenes, he met another woman, Cherie Zampino. They laughed all night. 3 months later, they were married. A year after that, their son Trey was born. On the night Trey was born, Will fell to his knees, sobbing uncontrollably, terrified of the responsibility. He made a vow. He was going to be the best father this planet had ever seen, or he was going to die trying. His first major film role came in 6 Degrees of Separation, a serious drama that forced him deep into method acting. He got so lost in the character of Paul that he lost touch with himself. He even fell in love with his co-star, Stockard Channing. When he returned to the set of Fresh Prince, he'd lost his comedic timing, his swagger, his charisma. He couldn't remember how to be Will. His marriage to Cherie was also struggling. He felt like he was living with a stranger. The disconnect was too deep, and they eventually divorced. The day he signed the divorce papers, he called Jada Pinkett. "Are you seeing anybody?" he asked. She said no. "Cool," he said. "You're seeing me now." Their first few months were intense, full of passion and deep conversation. Jada, he realized, was a queen strong enough to carry the weight of his enormous dreams. Their connection was powerful, but his ambition was an unstoppable force. He hit his stride with Bad Boys, a film that transformed him from sitcom star into action hero. Then came Independence Day. It was in Australia, at the opening of a Planet Hollywood, that he met Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, and Bruce Willis. He asked them for the secret. Arnold told him, "You are not a movie star if your movies are only successful in America. You have to travel the globe, shake every hand, kiss every baby. Think of yourself as a politician, running for biggest movie star in the world." This became Will's secret weapon. He realized other actors absolutely hated promoting their movies. He saw it as a massive opportunity. He would fly to Europe for the weekend, do a full day of press, attend a premiere, sign autographs, and be back on the set of Fresh Prince by Monday morning. He even started monitoring Tom Cruise's promotional schedules and vowed to do 2 hours more than him in every country. His edge? Music. He would hold free concerts outside the premieres, turning a simple movie opening into a cultural phenomenon. The formula worked brilliantly. Independence Day became the second highest-grossing film of all time. Then came Men in Black, which combined a blockbuster movie with a hit song, creating this unprecedented promotional storm. That movie cemented the 4th of July weekend as Big Willie Weekend. He was officially the biggest movie star in the world. But this success came with a hidden cost. He was running his life like a military campaign, demanding absolute perfection from everyone around him, including his family. He'd achieved everything he'd ever dreamed of. But this subtle sickness began creeping in. He was more anxious and fearful than ever. He was suffering from the nightmare of potentially losing it all. I Am Legend had the biggest December opening ever, but his first question to JL was, "Why do you think we missed 80 million?" He was trying to fill an internal emotional void with external achievements, and it wasn't working. Jada had put her own dreams on hold to support his vision. She'd dreamed of having a heavy metal band, Wicked Wisdom. She even landed a spot on Ozfest. But when Guns N' Roses asked her to open for them, the tour conflicted with filming The Pursuit of Happiness, a movie Will was making with their son Jaden. Jada turned down the tour. She'd boarded the Will train, and there seemed to be no getting off. The breaking point came at Jada's 40th birthday party. For 3 years, Will had planned what he called the Taj Mahal of birthday parties, a surprise 3-day event in Santa Fe. He commissioned a documentary about her life, tracing her family lineage all the way back to slavery. He flew in her favorite artists. Mary J. Blige gave a surprise performance. It was this massive, public display of his love, designed to fix everything between them. After the grand unveiling of the documentary, they went back to their hotel room. Jada was completely silent. "That was the most disgusting display of ego I have ever seen in my life," she finally said. They screamed at each other until their daughter Willow emerged from her room, crying, hands covering her ears. "Just figure it out! Both of you, figure it out!" Their marriage wasn't working. They were both miserable. "I retire," Will told her. "I retire from trying to make you happy. You go do you, and I'm going to go do me." It was the brutal death of their romantic fantasies. They agreed to let each other go, to find their own happiness separately, and then bring that wholeness back to the relationship. This period of separation launched Will on a profound journey of self-discovery. A trip to Trinidad, where he was forced to be alone and without his usual security team, made him realize he was an addict, not to drugs or alcohol, but to work, to winning, to the approval of others. He was addicted to filling every single second of his life, so he wouldn't have to actually feel anything. He embarked on a 14-day silent retreat, completely alone in a house in Utah. For the first time, he was forced to just be with himself, and he discovered he didn't particularly enjoy his own company. This led him deeper, including over a dozen ayahuasca ceremonies. In these intense journeys, he met a feminine presence he calls Mother. She showed him the infinite beauty inside of himself, a beauty that didn't need #1 movies or hit records to be worthy of love. She taught him to quiet the constant mental chatter, to be still, and to surrender. Surrender had always been a negative word to him. It meant losing. But he began seeing it as a different kind of infinite power. Letting go could be just as powerful as holding on. The final lesson came from Daddy-O. He was dying of heart failure. Will was given 6 weeks to say goodbye. Drawing on what he'd learned about death, he knew his father needed one thing: permission to go. "You did good with your life," Will told him. "And when you're ready to go, it's okay. I've got it from here." As Daddy-O's body weakened, the soldier, the intimidating figure, disappeared. In his final days, Daddy-O had one burning question: was my life useful? He needed to know that their lives were better, because he'd been there. Will realized that ultimate happiness, the smile his grandmother Gigi always had, doesn't come from what you receive. It comes from what you give. In the end, it won't matter how well they loved you. It will only matter how well you loved them. Will had spent his entire life running from fear, building this perfect, impenetrable fortress of success around himself. But he learned that true happiness isn't a fortress at all. It's a garden. It's not about winning, it's about loving. The journey wasn't about slaying some monster. It was about learning to love that scared little boy inside, the one who'd been standing in that doorway all along. It was about realizing that bravery isn't the absence of fear. Bravery is learning to move forward, even when you're absolutely terrified. When you close a book like Will, it's hard not to feel genuinely moved, not just by the incredible heights of success, but by the profound depths of the emotional journey underneath it all. This isn't just a story about a movie star. It's a story about being human. It's about the masks we all wear, the characters we create to protect ourselves from a world that can feel dangerous and unforgiving. The most powerful lesson, at least for me, is this idea of the persona versus the authentic self. Will Smith, the global icon, was actually a character he named Uncle Fluffy, the ultimate people pleaser, the funny guy who needed everyone to like him to feel safe. This character brought him unimaginable success, but it also became a prison. It forced him to suppress his own feelings, his own truth, in exchange for approval. And when Fluffy failed, the general would emerge, the demanding, relentless winner who would achieve the goal no matter the cost to himself or the people around him. How many of us do exactly this in our own lives? We create a version of ourselves for work, another for our friends, another for our family. We become so skilled at playing these roles that we completely forget who we are when nobody's watching. We forget what we genuinely want, what we truly feel. Will's journey is this powerful reminder that the real adventure isn't conquering the external world. It's finding your way back to your authentic self. His lesson about surrender is another piece of genuinely timeless wisdom. In a culture that constantly worships hustle and grinding, the idea that letting go can be just as powerful as striving feels almost revolutionary. His relationship with the ocean, what he calls the Big She, is this beautiful metaphor for life itself. You can't control it. You can't force it to bend to your will. You can only learn to respect its power, understand its currents, and dance within its rhythm. True power isn't about forcing your will on the world. It's about alignment with something bigger. So what can we actually take from this? I think it starts with a simple but courageous act. Ask yourself the questions Will had to face. Who are the characters you play? What are they protecting you from? And what would your life actually look like if you didn't need anyone's approval but your own? What would you do if you weren't afraid? This journey from fear to freedom isn't an easy one. It requires looking directly at the darkest parts of ourselves, the parts we've carefully hidden away. But as Will's story beautifully shows, on the other side of that fear isn't just success. It's peace. It's genuine love. It's the freedom to finally, truly be yourself. That was a summary of Will by Will Smith. We've covered the major themes and stories today, but I'll be honest with you, a summary can only take you so far. The real power of this book lives in the nuance, the vulnerability, and the raw honesty of Will's voice. It's in those quiet moments between the blockbuster hits, when a particular story or a simple phrase hits you in a way you didn't expect. This summary is designed to help you decide if this book is worth your time. If anything we've talked about today has genuinely resonated with you, I highly recommend grabbing a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning facts. It's an experience that can genuinely shift the way you see yourself, your fears, and your own incredible potential. The link to the book is in the description below. Also, if you found this journey valuable, please show your support by hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel. It lets us know we're on the right track and ensures you won't miss our next exploration into another life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Let's keep growing together.